You've been involved your whole life with sailing. If there's one thing that sort of tracks your life, it's sailing. Can sailing save the world? I mean, is this a way to get young men active and out there and involved?
Well, yeah, I think a prime example, as you know, I was chairman of the American Sail Training Association for many years, and its role is to, the leadership role to get youngsters on sailing vessels of one kind or another, not to teach them how to sail, but the challenge of teamwork, of the elements.
Responsibility and all
and developing self-respect, going aloft when you're dead afraid to do so. In terms of the youngsters who are in trouble in school these days, all this money we're pouring into the system is not very effective, whereas sending a youngster out to sea for a week or two is very effective and costs saving.
I can understand why this is a good thing for kids at risk. I sailed on one of the on the Tevegas. Remember the Tevega?
Oh, right.
Yeah. And that was those were pretty much at-risk kids. And you get them out at sea for a couple of weeks, and a lot of that attitude disappears because there's no place for it.
There's only one problem. They go back into the communities where they were misled to begin with, and unless they find a job or go to school, they come under a bad influence again.
Well, you've always thought that sailing was an educational tool, right?
Mm-hmm. One example would be that all the campaign to put together the Yale Sailing Center, that would be the first college center, especially to train for the Olympic teams.
Right.
And other colleges would send in sailors to be run at Yale.
And what's the impetus for the training center, the Olympic Training Center, is the fact that we haven't been doing so well, right, in the Olympics?
Well, that's true.
We have these great college sailing programs, and they're not turning out the sailors that we need, or what's the problem?
Well, of course, the college programs really aren't aimed at the Olympic
No.
level.
But what's missing?
I think it's missing is the British 20 years ago worked out a very effective plan. They've been medal winners for a long time. You start youngsters with incentive, and you carry them along through several years of training and provide competition. We don't quite have that. Once again, we're revamping our national program under U.S. Sailing to try to address this problem.
Right.
Because Glenn Forster, you remember the great sailor Glenn Forster?
Sure.
He always said that if you have a college sport that's an Olympic sport, you can sail it at the Olympic level. But you can't quite afford catamarans and 470s and that kind of thing at that level.
No, you can't.
And if you're going to have competition between colleges, you've got to be in a boat where the college doesn't have that kind of equipment, can compete. The predominant boats are in intercollegiate sailing, 420s and the Flying Junior.
Oh, right.
And so you might be at a college that has one boat like that, and then you're competing the next weekend in the 420. That's why the Naval Academy can afford to have both fleets, and then they'll train in whatever boat is going to be in the next competition.
Well, the Naval Academy is really unusual. Nobody has as many boats as the Navy has. We used to go race there from Brown and just throw up our hands. You know, how are we gonna do this?
Because Yale and Princeton were the first two colleges to first compete at Navy. Navy had gotten three or four of the yawls just before the war, and then they suspended construction during the war.
Right.
So we were down there the first time they ever competed with outsiders.
Wow. Did you beat them?
Yeah, because they didn't really know what they did. They didn't know much about Genoa jibs. And intercollegiate sailing has been a big factor. For instance, say prior to 1939, virtually all the sailors on our Olympic team were older people, graduates and whatnot. Now, you're lucky to get on the sailing team if you have not sailed at college. So it's become a great training ground. They're a great challenge.